And thank you everyone for taking the time to come to the board meeting. We need every person here for quorum, so we really appreciate you making the effort. And at this point, I would like to call the meeting to order. It is the Friday, October 4th, 2024 meeting of the California Board of Naturopathic Medicine. It is 10:35 a.m. And Rebecca, can you just do a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Dr. Dara Thompson,
Present.
Dr. Mina Yoon,
Present.
Dr. Vera Singleton,
Present.
Dr. Satara Tice,
Present.
and Mr. Andy Yam.
Present.
Okay, and Dr. Deparshi Mukherjee and Dr. Bruce Davidson are absent with cause today.
Thank you so much. I think I'll have everyone turn off their cameras unless they're speaking at this point, just because it seems to really improve our connection on WebEx in my experience. So wonderful to see everyone's faces though. Okay, so sorry. Next item on the agenda is public comment on items not on the agenda. Do we have any public members present? I have none at my location.
This is the moderator. I'm happy to step through the locations. In the Sacramento El Dorado room, are there any members of the public present?
No, there are not.
Thank you. And then San Rafael, Dr. Thompson confirmed no members of the public present. In Fresno, Dr. Tice, are there any members of the public?
There's not.
Thank you. In San Francisco, Dr. Yoon?
No, there are not.
Thank you. In Lafayette, Dr. Singleton? No one's here. Thank you. And in Monterey Park, Mr. Yam?
There is no one.
Okay, thank you very much. If someone does arrive, please let us know. Otherwise, during future public comment periods, we will only check in with the El Dorado room. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to item number 3. And I just want to check in with Rebecca because this is discussion and possible action on board officer nominations and voting. Are we able to do this since some of the people nominated, I think Dr. Davidson was nominated for something, are not present?
So Dr. Davidson, I believe, was not nominated. Hang on a second, and I will let you know who the nominations are.
Oh, thank you. Perhaps I'm just misremembering that.
All right. So for the nomination for president, it is Dr. Thompson. There was only one nomination. For the vice president, there were 3 nominations: Dr. Vera Singleton, Dr. Mina Yoon, and Mr. Andrew Yam. And for the secretary, there was only one nomination for Mr. Andrew Yam. And
All right,
because
wonderful.
since Dr. Singleton was not at the last meeting, you may want to check in with her to see if she is willing to accept a nomination.
All right, well, let's start with that. Dr. Singleton, you were nominated for the vice president position. Is that something that you would be willing to do if elected?
Unfortunately, I'll have to decline the nomination. I am truly honored, though.
Wonderful. And so then we had Dr. Yoon and Andy Yam as the other 2, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Can I speak to that, I guess?
Absolutely, go ahead. Dr. Yam?
I
Or
apologize. I
Mr.
think
Yam?
I might be having some slight audio issues.
Oh, okay. Well, we can hear you now.
It seems, Mr. Yam, that there's a muting and unmuting issue. Are you perhaps using the space bar to mute and unmute? Because that might be confusing it.
Oh,
Generally.
no, the audio is just, it's not the unmute and muting. I think that sometimes the audio is coming back kind of staticky for me.
Okay, our side showed that you were muted earlier, just a moment ago, but so yeah, let's keep going and see how it goes.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, if you could just let us know what you wanted to say with that.
Oh, I just wanted to just make a quick remark. If I know that with 3 nominations and with Dr. Singleton, declining the nomination, I perhaps might want to ask my colleague, Dr. Yoon, about your interest, and if so, then I can just withdraw my name and we can make this just one for each position.
Thank you. Yes, I am willing to take the position if nominated or if elected.
So what I'm hearing then is that Mr. Yam would be interested in withdrawing his name for the vice president position, but keeping it in the secretary position. Is that correct, Mr. Yam?
That's correct. Yes, Dr. Thompson.
Okay, great. Are we able to do that at this point, Rebecca?
Yes, that would be okay.
Okay, wonderful. So in that case, we just have one person for each position, which makes voting easy. And so would we then do roll call votes for each of the positions?
Yes, we would.
Excellent. Would you like to do that, Rebecca?
Sure. So do I have a motion or do we need a motion for this? Is it motion, right? Okay. So motion for the appointment of Dr. Dara Thompson to the president position.
So moved.
Second?
This
I will
is
second
Andy
that.
M.
Okay, so I have Yam motioned and a second by Mina.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. And let me go ahead and take that roll call. Dr. Dara Thompson,
Yes.
Dr. Mina Yoon,
Aye.
Dr. Vera Singleton,
Aye.
Dr. Satara Tice,
Yes. Aye.
and Mr. Andy Yam.
Aye.
Great, and that moves with 5. All right, and do I have a motion for the appointment of Dr. Mina Yoon to the vice president position?
A motion for Dr. Yoon in the vice president position.
I can second
Great,
that.
thank you, Dr. Thompson. Who was the second?
Oh, this is Dr. Tice.
Thank you so much. All right, and I will go ahead and take roll call vote. Dr. Dara Thompson,
Aye.
Dr. Mina Yoon,
Aye.
Dr. Vera Singleton,
Aye.
Dr. Satara Tice,
Aye.
and Mr. Andy Yam,
Aye.
and that moves with 5. Okay. And can I get a motion for the appointment of Mr. Andy Yam to the secretary position?
I'll move to make a motion to make Andy Yam the secretary.
Okay,
I'll
and
second
this is Mina.
Mhm.
Yoon Singleton, perfect. All right, and I will take that roll call vote. Dr. Dara Thompson,
Aye.
Dr. Mina Yoon,
Aye.
Dr. Vera Singleton,
Aye.
Dr. Satara Tice,
Aye.
and Mr. Andy Yam.
Aye.
Great, and that moves with 5. Congratulations to our new officers.
Wonderful. It's very exciting to have so many people available for actions and things. Okay, do we need to call for public comment? Do we have any members of the public present?
This is the moderator. If there are any members of the public who would like to make a comment on the board appointments, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. You may raise your hand in the room, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. Our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Is there any comment on the appointments and votes? We do not have any public logged into WebEx. Does anyone have any public at their location? Sacramento, I think, is the most likely to get anyone. Do you have any public there?
We have no public members here.
Thank you. All right, then we will close the request for public comment and we may move on. Dr. Thompson.
Wonderful. Our next agenda item is the review and possible approval of the June 27th, 2024 board meeting minutes. All of the board members had an opportunity to review those minutes prior to the meeting. Does anyone have any corrections or questions about that?
No.
All right, so if there are no edits, then I would move that we do a roll call vote for the approval of the June 27th, 2024 board meeting minutes.
Do you have a second?
I'll second the motion. Dr. Yoon?
Thank you, and I will take a roll call vote. Dr. Dara Thompson.
Do you want to take public comment before you?
Sorry. We have no people public here, or do you, any members have public in their location site for comment?
And there are no members of the public logged into WebEx at this time.
Perfect. All right, and I will go ahead and take roll call vote. Dr. Dara Thompson,
Aye.
Dr. Mina Yoon,
Aye.
Dr. Vera Singleton,
Aye.
Dr. Satara Tice,
Aye.
Mr. Andy Yam,
Aye.
and that moves with 5 to approve the 6/27/24 minutes as submitted.
Okay, so we're moving on to agenda item number 5, which is discussion and possible action on the Department of Consumer Affairs update. I'm going to turn this over to you, Rebecca. And do we have members of DCA to discuss the budget?
Yes, we, so we're going to do the Executive Office DCA update first.
Okay, great. So it looks like we have, I'm so sorry, Judy, I'm not sure I can pronounce your last name. Buccarelli?
Oh, no. Bucciarelli.
Bucciarelli, here to discuss the
Bucciarelli.
Executive Office update. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Good morning, board members. My name is Judy Bucciarelli from the Department of Consumer Affairs Board and Bureau Relations. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to join your meeting today. Before I begin today, I would like to thank the members of the Naturopathic Medical Board of California for your service and dedication to protect the consumers of California. This morning, I have a brief update for you. I'll be starting with some general information related to 2 budget letters issued by the California Department of Finance. The first budget letter is 2420, which provides information related to vacancy savings and position elimination. Work continues to address the state's budget deficit. At the end of July, the Department of Finance issued budget letter 20 that outlines the assumed reduction of the state's workforce by 10,000 vacancies and $1.5 billion. The Department of Finance estimated a target reduction for each state department by reviewing the department's vacancies and then assuming half of the savings from those vacant positions. DCA worked closely with agency and each board and bureau to provide detailed notes, requested exclusions, and justifications position by position. DCA submitted a proposed vacancy reduction plan to the Department of Finance in mid-August and is awaiting its approval. Next, I'll provide some general information on Department of Finance's budget letter 2424, which provides information related to government efficiencies reductions. On August 16th, the Department of Finance issued budget letter 2424, which outlines the reduction of state departmental budgets by 7.95% in order to achieve state savings of $2.1 billion in fiscal year 24-25 and into future fiscal years. DCA is identifying fixed cost exemptions that cannot be reduced, such as Office of the Attorney General and the Office of Administrative Hearings, so they can be excluded from consideration. The final budget reduction plan was scheduled to be submitted to agency and the Department of Finance for approval at the end of September. DCA's budget office continues to work closely with each board and bureau on these reduction requests while always balancing our mission of consumer protection. These are challenging budget exercises, and the department would like to acknowledge board and bureau leaders for their thoughtful and diligent efforts that are often under very quick deadlines. DCA will continue to share updates from the Department of Finance as they are received. As a reminder, DCA boards and bureaus must continue to scrutinize expenditures and maximize cost savings, only authorizing expenditures that are mission critical and essential to operations and public services. And my last item is recognizing one of DCA's leadership team. DCA is very proud to share that on August 20th, Jason Piccioni, DCA's Deputy Director for the Office of Information Services, was honored for developing DCA's Federal Professional License Portability and State Registration Portal. Jason received the Best of California Award in the Innovation Serving the Public category at the 2024 California Government Innovation Summit. Launched last fall, DCA boards and bureaus have accepted over 176 individuals to practice in California through this online portal. DCA did not receive any additional funding or staffing for its implementation and has worked hard to ensure it is efficiently serving military service members and their spouses relocating to California. The online portal Jason designed and implemented has been used by the U.S. Department of Defense as a model for other states. This concludes the DCA update, and again, I thank you for the opportunity to join you today. At this time, I will turn the meeting back to Dr. Thompson, and I would be happy to answer any questions from the board.
So much for that update. I don't actually have any questions. Do we have questions from any of the board members regarding that update?
No questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and all of your hard work. We really appreciate you coming.
Okay, thank you. You're very welcome.
Great. So at this time, we are going to hear about our budget, which is an ongoing issue of stress for us. Thank you so much, Harmony, for joining us. This is Harmony DiFilippo.
Yes, good morning. Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, we're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. And thank you to all the board and executive staff for allowing me a few minutes to present on agenda item 5B today, the board's expenditure projections and fund condition statement. So first I'm going to start with the board's expenditures, which is your attachment 5.1 of your materials. So these projections are the 23-24 actuals. This report includes the 22-23 actual expenditures in green, as well as the 23-24 budgeted and actual expenditures in blue and orange. As we move to the end of the document, you'll see that the board had a beginning base budget of $771,000 and spent a little over $660,000, creating a reversion to the board's fund of a little under $111,000 with a reversion percentage of 14.38%. The next document I will go over is the board's revenue projections, which is the attachment 5.2 of your materials. This report includes receipts collected through June year-end, fiscal year end for 23-24, and provides the actual revenue. I will go further into the revenue as we transition into the next slide. The next slide is attachment 5.3 of your materials, and this is the board's fund condition statement. As a reminder, we read this document from top to bottom and left to right. The left column is the board's prior year 23-24 pre-actuals. It shows the board began 23-24 with a beginning balance of $888,000 and collected $622,000 in revenue, with $90,000 from the initial license fees, $486,000 from license renewals, and $46,000 was collected from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board expended $689,000, which includes $29,000 in direct draws to the fund for statewide pro rata and other pension payments. Based on the pre-actuals, the board ended 23-24 with a reserve balance of $821,000 or 12.4 months in reserve. For the current year, the board projects revenues of $550,000 with $100,000 projected from the initial license fee, $431,000 from renewal fees, and $19,000 from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board's 24-25 expenditures are currently based on the governor's budget at $779,000 between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board with a fund balance of $574,000 or 8.5 months in reserve. The budget office will continue to monitor the board's revenue and expenditures and report back to the board with monthly expenditure projections as we close out each fiscal month in the current year. A few things to note about the board's fund condition. The fund condition is a snapshot in time. One of the main factors in driving expenditure increases in future years is a result of personnel service adjustments. These include general salary increases as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The budget office includes a conservative ongoing 3% increase to the expenditures on the fund condition statement to account for these incremental adjustments. You will also notice revenue is projected static in the out years. This will be updated through the fall process, and you'll see an update next year. Current year is based off of the governor's budget and will be updated with fiscal month projections at the next meeting. Lastly, I would like to note to the board that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's need for additional resources, which would create cost pressures on the fund. The Budget Office will continue to monitor the board's fund condition statement and keep an open line of communication with the board's executive officer for any future needs or expectations. That concludes my presentation. And again, thank you for allowing me to present at today's meeting. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
You have a question?
Yes, thank you so much. I have a question regarding under revenue. It says income from surplus money investments. Can you explain a little bit more about where that money comes from?
So the income that money is calculated based off of a formula currently and takes into consideration the beginning balance for that fiscal year, the revenues collected, and that's in the total expenditures. And so that's calculated based off of the fund balance, and then projects into those future out years what we anticipate to receive from in the surplus money investment. So that number will fluctuate anytime there's changes made to the fund condition and the revenue. So it's a fluid number, except for in 23-24, the number listed there is actuals.
And is that number only given like 1 year in advance because of the knowledge of what is the fund condition?
Yes, so currently for the current year 24-25, that was based off of the revenue that was identified for current year, which again will be updated, so that number can potentially change, as well as those out years.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely.
This is Dr. Thompson. I'm so sorry if I missed this, but these projections are for our current licensing fees and not for if those fees were increased as we're proposing, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So upon approval, we would update the fund condition to reflect that incremental or the revised projections for those revenue line items.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course.
Are there any other questions? Well, thank you so much for being here and giving us this information. Do we have any public comment on either of these presentations?
Let me check in with in-person Sacramento. Do you have any public?
No, we do not have any public.
Okay, thank you. And do any other locations have any members of the public? Hearing none, we do have public on the WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment on the budget report or the DCA report, you may look for the hand icon, click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. Are there any comments on the budget report? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that public comment feature?
Please.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda is discussion and possible action to consider comments received during the 45-day public comment period and proposed responses thereto for the board's rulemaking amendment title regarding fees. So we did get several comments which Rebecca sent out to us. And so Rebecca, would you like to take over the section because you sent out the 45-day public comment period, you received those letters back. Can you give us kind of an update on where we are with that? And do we need to review each of the comments?
So we have our regulations attorney here as well. Christy is in the office with us. We did receive 3 comments, well, 2 comments really. So we received one comment from one of our licensees who runs a clinic, and so she provided unfortunately, an opposition letter to us from her clinic staff. And there were 3 licensees involved in this letter. And then that you guys have, it was a attachment with the documents that I sent out to you. And then I also had one other document or email from one of our licensees who stated that they were not protesting the increase of the fees. However, they wanted to know if they could break up the payments into a couple of different payments, which we can't do it, unfortunately. And I will go ahead and let Christy speak to this.
Good morning, board members. This is Christy Shield, Regulations. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is Christy Shield again, Regulations Counsel for the board. So after the board receives adverse comments, we're required to bring the comments back to you so you can see them, understand what the issues are. The Office of Administrative Law requires us to break each policy concern or objection into a specific item and summarize it and explain what the board's proposed response would be. The staff and I have consulted, and the recommendations are included in your meeting materials. So each comment concern is summarized as either like comment A, B, or C within each document, and then the proposed or staff recommended response is included. And so hopefully you've all had the opportunity to read the memo and the attachments, because it is up to you to decide whether to agree with the staff recommendation. And if you do agree with the way that the responses are written, we request that you move option A, which is on the 5th page of the memo, where if you agree with the proposed responses, we request that you direct the executive officer to proceed as recommended to reject adverse comments as specified and provide the responses to the comments as indicated in the staff's recommended responses provided in the board meeting materials. Any questions from the board members on the memo, the issues, or the process?
Were there any details on like what the letter of opposition, like what was, like what specifically their issues were?
Well, it's in the meeting materials. We provided you attachment 1A and B, which is the Live Well Clinic. And that letter is in your meeting materials, so you can see the actual comment itself. We did summarize the issues they raised beginning on the 2nd page of the memo, beginning with comment A, alleging that the proposed increase was a 150% increase in the biennial renewal fee, expressing concerns about the magnitude of the increase. And then as follows, the issues are summarized in the proposed response. It is not a 150% increase. So we explained that it's not. It's a $200 increase from the existing $1,000 biennial renewal fee, and directing them to look at the initial statement of reasons in the workload analysis that explains why the board needs to do this increase. They also raised issues about the fact that doctors, that your fee would be higher than a medical doctor's renewal fee. The current medical doctor's renewal fee is $1,194, so it would be $6 higher. And we understand that concern, but we don't determine our fees based on what other agencies charge. It's what it costs you to run your program based on the number of licensees that you have and the costs associated to fund the program. And so I think we discussed at the March board meeting the fact that you don't have as many licensees, so the cost per licensee for renewal is going to be higher because you can't spread the risk, so to speak, across a larger licensing population. So that is one issue I think you were all talking about bringing forward in the sunset report. And I believe the associations have weighed in on that as well, is my understanding. But I'll defer to the executive officer on that piece. But again, the issues are summarized in the memo, but the actual comments themselves we have provided you in the attachment, so you can read them and verify for yourselves that we've appropriately summarized and addressed each issue, because we are required to do that in the rulemaking file. Any further questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. Christy, I want to thank you all for this effort, and I just want to comment and say I do feel like these were very legitimate and appropriate comments given the increase in fees. And thank you for explaining to the licensees why we aren't able to change what we're doing based on that. I mean, we really are in a situation where we don't desire to charge our licensees more, but in order to be able to run and be able to license them so that they can be licensed professionals in the state of California, we just have to. So we really are in a situation where, I think we need to adopt these responses and move forward because we don't really have another choice.
This is Christy Shields, Regulations Counsel again. Yes, and that is really the crux of the issue, is that you don't have any alternative. You've seen the budget report in the prior item. You're going to be running out of money in the future, and so we have to project plan for that to prevent that from happening. And I agree with you, and I've seen this at various board meetings, and many of the boards are raising fees. They're in a similar situation. We're in an inflationary economy. Things are more expensive. Salaries are going up to, in accordance with bargaining unit agreements, which the board has no control over. We don't negotiate the salaries of our staff. It's negotiated bargaining unit levels with the Cal HR administration. So that is what you're faced with, and this is really our strong recommendation from the legal office that you do this to prevent the board from ceasing operations and the liability that comes along with it. We've talked about at the March board meeting. Yes, Dr. Singleton.
Yes, thank you. My question, and I think this was addressed in one of the comments that were received, was alternative sources of income. And to my knowledge, I don't think that we can generate any additional income at all except through licensing fees. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we have potential sources of revenue from things like citation and fine, but those are hard to predict and they're not stable sources of revenue. So we don't rely on a projection of anticipated revenue from things like that. What we look, or cost recovery, if you will, in your administrative hearings is another way to get revenue, but what we have as a standard authority is licensing fees for your applications, and renewal fees are the bread and butter, so to speak, of all state agencies. It's what we use to make sure we can fund operations, and that's why that number is so much higher, because that's the fee that actually funds the state agencies' operations and functions. Yes. Dr. Singleton, did I address everything, or did you have an additional question?
You did, and I have an additional question. So in terms of our
Okay.
sunset review coming up. Do we feel like the increase in fees will be enough to cover the expenses that are garnered with that process? I'm
No,
not sure,
unfortunately,
even if fees go up during the sunset period. I imagine that more staffing hours are used or more resources, but would that be
so the
covered?
fees that we Dr. Singleton, this is Rebecca. So with the fees that we're proposing to increase in this regulation package, basically what that's going to do is it's just going to kind of prolong our solvency, but it's still not going to fix the issue. The issue is we have a low population of licensees, and because of that low population of licensees, we do not have enough to bring in licensing fees to keep our board going. So basically, you know, we've heard about the reasons of the population being so low here is because of our scope. So there were some talks around how to maybe make some efforts in legislation. I know that the association has some efforts that they're going to be going on in the next, I believe, legislative session. So there are some ways that you can drive up the fees to kind of help this situation, but until those things have been tackled, we really are just, you know, being hopeful at this point that we are going to keep the licensing population that we currently have and that the fees will help a little bit, but it is not going to fix the problem.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think my questions stem from the type of comments that were made, and the concerns when I look at the strategic planning, especially around DEI. I think some of the things that were proposed, you know, having this sort of incline in fees is going to sort of go against that DEI initiative, and make it, it's not that it's cost prohibitive, but it makes it so that not everybody has the opportunity to come to California and practice. That might be something that deters people from practicing here. Or
Yeah,
issuing their
and
license.
that's a, you know, that's a very good, you know, take on it. And unfortunately, right now, you know, you know, and the rest of the board members know that we've really had a hard time coming to terms with having to increase the fees. It's not something that we wanted to do. Unfortunately, we just don't have a choice at this moment. If we do not do this, we will not be here in 27, 28. We'll be negative in money.
Sure, I understand that. And do you think that the percent or the fee increase, because if I remember correctly, this is the first step, and then there's another step that we would have to increase, I think, 2 years after. Is that correct? Is it better to just raise the fees, let's say by $400 as opposed to 200?
Yeah, this is Christy Shields, Regulations Counsel. I think that's a discussion for another day. I think that that would be addressed to maybe potentially increasing the caps on your statutory. This regulation proposal will increase your renewal and other fees to the statutory maximums, the caps, if you will. And so what we're going to need to look at long term is whether we need to, and it's, the budget office had recommended it in March, exploring how high you need to increase the caps to allow you to continue to incrementally increase fees if you have to. Of course, if you get a larger influx of licensees, then it may stabilize your fund condition. But the problem is we don't know. We only can go on what we know and what we have in terms of current figures and projections. And so for now, this is all we can do within your jurisdiction to stabilize your fund condition. The next step would be to bring an item back to a future board meeting to discuss, how to deal with the structural imbalance in the long term. What are your options? Have the budget office come and explain, after exploring and researching the issue with your staff, what suggestions they would give you for the sunset. I think sunset, is it next year or next year? Right. So next year you have an opportunity to bring your case, so to speak, to the legislature of these concerns that you have. And it's a great opportunity for you to get the ear of the legislature and get them involved in addressing these concerns.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think Dr. Yoon was the next person with her hand up.
Yes, thanks. One of my I have a comment first about the proposed responses. I think both of the emails that I have read are, again, like Dr. Thompson had mentioned, within reason. The clinic, one of the responses that I would like to see is an invitation for them to come and attend our board meetings. I think that that is something that I didn't see that as part of the response, but I think that would be some way that some licensees would feel like they are participating and having a better idea of what's going on behind the scenes. So I don't know if that can be
My
included.
only concern, this is Christy Shilge again, Regulations Council. We're supposed to actually address the policy objections and explain why we can't agree with their recommendations because of the current fiscal structural imbalance that you have. I think that Ms. Mitchell could certainly reach out independently. I don't know if she has already, but and ask them to invite them to come to a future board meeting to discuss these issues separately. I just don't know that it would be on point, so to speak, to include it as a response to the comment, because the comment didn't say, how do I come to the board meeting and present my concerns? It said, I don't agree with this increase and here are my concerns. And I agree with you, they're valid concerns. I mean, everyone's feeling pressured by this current economy and how expensive things are. But the fact is that the board can't continue to not raise fees and exist.
Understood.
And that's kind of what the comment responses say.
Right. I mean,
That makes sense.
this is Dr. Thompson. I just want to say, again, it's not like we're making money. Like, this is just the cost that it, like,
You're not.
your licensing fee pays for the cost to license you. Like, that's what a licensing fee is. And we're all sorry that that cost is so high, but that's just what the cost is. You know, like, that's basically where we're at. Like, it's a basic truth. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in. Mr. Yam?
Thank you so much. I think I echo, the sentiments of what folks had shared before. I do appreciate these folks for submitting their comments. And I think that the staff response is one that, acknowledges the concern. And I guess, like, I just, and I don't know whether we can sort of go into like this, or we head into that larger conversation of, like, with these fee increases, right, that we're, I think for a later time at some point to kind of figure out, like, we are heading down this road of, it's going to just consequently get higher and higher in terms of fee increases unless there's a substantial change in the number of licensees population that we do have, because at the end of the day, it is pretty much an economy of scale when it comes to administrative costs and trying to process things. And so I guess that's the challenge that I'm seeing here. So I do appreciate, I think, folks raising their concerns, and I do appreciate as well also that staff had highlighted that again, I understand that like each board has to be different given the licensee population and cost. Of course, comparatively, it's also we're not so far out, I think, the range. But I did have a question as well, regarding the comment about breaking up the payments. Just a question for staff. Has it ever been a concern, or was it ever has there ever been any cases, if any at all, that were raised about, that a licensee says that they do need to pay in installments, right? Has that been a previous concern, or this is sort of a new one?
So it's been brought up once or twice before. It's not something that we are able to do. We do have policies that we have to kind of meet, and so that is something that we are not able to do. So we have had a discussion. I've had a discussion with budgets, had a discussion with legal. It's not something that we're able to do, unfortunately.
Okay, understood. Right, and it would also, I think, affect projections, and existing revenue. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I was just curious about whether or not this was a new issue or not. But I've shared my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Do we need to ask for public comment before we motion?
You actually make the motion and then you ask for public comment and then you vote.
Okay, wonderful.
So if there's anyone that's willing to make a motion, go ahead.
Then I would motion that we adopt the responses as written.
So may I offer some advice? And the only reason I'm asking for the motion on page 5, option A, is that I know that's what the Office of Administrative Law has accepted as proof that you approved the content.
Happy to change my wording on that. I motion that we accept page 5, option A, as our responses to these comments.
Do we have a second?
Second. Andy M.
Do we have any public comments?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may click on the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box, and click send. Are there any comments from WebEx users on the motion? I do not see any WebEx request for comment. Are there any comments in any of the public locations? All right, I do not see that. Shall I close the public comment features?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right, so since we have a motion and a second, I think we need a roll call vote on that.
All right, we will go ahead and start roll call vote to adopt the staff recommendations on page 5, option A. Dr. Dara Thompson.
Aye.
Dr. Mina Yoon.
Aye.
Dr. Vera Singleton.
Aye.
Dr. Satara Tice.
Aye.
Mr. Andy Yam.
Aye.
And that motion moves with 5. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. So this ties into agenda item number 7, nicely, which is the, sorry, I'm totally on the wrong. Yep. Discussion and possible action to consider the amendments to CCR Title 16 regarding fees. Rebecca?
So basically this here for agenda item number 7, it's basically just recommendations of the staff that the board rejects the previously discussed comments in the agenda item number 6 and make no further changes to the proposed text. Staff recommends consider the following motion to complete the rulemaking process and adopt the proposed text. And you guys have that in your materials, and that would be motion A is what we are recommending. And if you guys are in agreement, then somebody would need to make a motion to.
So let me just read the recommended motion into the record. And we're talking about approving the text that is included in your meeting materials in attachment A, which in attachment 1, sorry, of item 7, which is the text that was published to the public and noticed for 45-day comment. And the motion would be to direct staff to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process, including the filing of the final rulemaking package with the Office of Administrative Law. Authorize the executive officer to make any non-substantive changes to the proposed regulation in the rulemaking documents and adopt the proposed regulations as noticed for 16 CCR section 4240 as set forth in attachment 1.
Thank you, Christy, for that summary. So basically, we're just voting to adopt what we already agreed on and already posted, correct?
Right, and so the reason we have to do this, again, is because the original motion was to bring the item back and not adopt the text if you received any adverse comments, and you did, so we had to bring it back, and now we have to reconfirm your original policy direction is where you want to go in this item.
Okay, great. So, do we need a motion on that? Do we need a public comment? Actually, let's just see if any of the board members would like to comment on that. I do not have any comments.
Do you mind, this is Dr. Singleton, can you remind me again which document we're referring to? I'm just going back and looking at the agenda items.
So I don't know if you're looking online or if you have a separate booklet that you get from your executive officer, but online it's agenda item 7.1 that you're approving. So that's the text that you originally approved back in March. And we're just asking you to reapprove it. And the motion that I read into the record from page 2 of the meeting materials memo, motion A, is what we're recommending, which is to essentially continue and file the package with the Office of Administrative Law to finalize the fee increase. Now, it is a 30-day working day review process for OAL, so it will probably, if OAL approves the package, it probably wouldn't take effect till the end of the year. And again, because you have biennial renewal based on birth date, the fee increases will be seen by your licensing population at different times. So if they've already renewed this year, they're not going to see it for 2 years. If they haven't, they will see it now. So it's going to be a staggered implementation. Everyone's not going to get a fee increase at the same time, if that makes sense and helps you with your deliberations.
I think because we don't have any additional changes, then I would motion to accept motion A as a recommendation.
This is Dr.
Do we have
Yoon.
a second?
This is Dr. Yoon. I would second the
Thank
motion.
you, Dr. Yoon. Do we have any public comment?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. You may look for the question mark icon and click that. Type the word comment into the text box and click send. And any calling users would press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments in person at any of the in-person locations?
There are no members of the public at this location.
Thank you. And I do not see any requests for comment from online users. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
And I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call vote to approve to adopt motion A. Dr. Dara Thompson,
Aye.
Dr. Mina Yoon,
Aye.
Dr. Vera Singleton,
Aye.
Dr. Satara Tice,
Aye.
and Mr. Andy Yam.
Aye.
And that motion moves with 5.
Okay, I just want to check in quickly about when our lunch break is going to be. Just want to see if we need to do a bio break now or if we should wait for lunch. Do we know when that's going to happen, Rebecca?
So we have lunch scheduled from 1 to 1:45. So if we need bio breaks, now would probably be a good time to do that.
Great. Why don't we just take a 10-minute bio break, everyone, and be back here at 11:44 to continue, and then we'll do lunch from 1 to 1:45. Thank you. Okay. So we're 1 minute late here. It is 11:45. Is everyone back? Can we do a roll call to make sure we have quorum?
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and do that now. Dr. Dara Thompson,
Present.
Dr. Mina Yoon,
Present.
Dr. Singleton,
Present.
Dr. Satara Tice,
Present.
and Mr. Andy Yam.
I'm present.
Great, and we have quorum.
Wonderful. So we're moving on to agenda item number 8, which is status and update on and report on the board's current rulemaking proposals.
All right, and so you guys had the table of our current statuses of our rulemaking in your agenda item 8 material. And I'll just go over what we have going on right now in the board. We have our name changer, the section 100, and just a reminder that this was just a kind of cleanup regulation package. Basically, we're going in, making changes to clean up all of the old committee terminology to the new current board terminology. We also updated the gender, non-specific gender in there, and I don't believe there were any addresses that we needed to update in this, but that's basically what we're doing. That was, the proposed text was sent to Reg Council for review back on the 25th of this month. So that'll probably be one of the next packages that we're going to be working on. We also have the delegation of functions. That was that we just kind of updated what the executive officer already does for the board, and you guys also provided the delegation for the executive officer, myself, to do the mental and physical exams for anybody that we may be having go through an enforcement case. Currently, that package, the staff is preparing the package now, and that will be sent over to the Regulation Council by 10/15/2024. That status updated was on the 24th of this month. The fees, as you know, the 45-day comment period ended. We went over everything today in today's board material, and this will be being worked on between myself and the regulatory attorney, Christy, and we'll be getting that over to the DCA's director, Kurtzmeyer, for her review. Let's see, inactive status, we discussed this back on the March 28th, 2024 meeting that we will not be moving forward at this time due to the fee structure. We, of course, can't raise fees and then decrease fees somewhere else. So we went ahead and we're going to just kind of pen that until either things get better with fees or we will be just removing this, but I will keep it on here and we'll just kind of look at it, every time we do a board meeting just to make sure that it's still appropriate to pend. The retired status. The staff prepared the proposed text, the proposed text was sent to the Regulation Council for review, and then we will be determining the appropriate fee for an application process. We do have authority in the Business and Professions Code Section 464 to make that determination. So basically, what we'll be doing is we'll be working with our budget office and with staff to do a workload analysis of what that application process looks like, how long it takes a staff member to do that, and then we will come up with an appropriate fee, and we'll bring that to you guys with that package and the regulation text. That status updated was on 9/25. And then for the IV injection and the IV therapy and the injection therapy, currently staff is researching infection control for this action in this area. CDC just had some updates in their infection control. So what we're doing is we're kind of researching that, trying to bring those into the proposed language, and then we'll be working with getting the subcommittee meeting early next year to work on proposed text with the controlled, with the infection control text in there as well. And that status update was on 9/23/2024. Are there any questions or comments about any of these? Any public comment?
This is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the status update, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send. Are there any members of the public at any of the public locations? Okay, I do not hear any public and I do not see any requests for comment online. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
And then, Rebecca, this was just an update. We don't need to take any action on this, correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. Thank you for putting that together. Then I think we can move on to agenda item number 9, discussion and possible action on the executive officer's report. So I will turn it over to our executive officer.
Perfect, thank you. So basically, this is just a quick update today. I don't have a lot for you just because we were really trying to get this package done. So basically, just have a really quick update on board member vacancies. Of course, we still have 2 vacancies in our board. The current following board member positions are vacant. We have 1 professional member, which is an ND licensee in the state of California. It's been vacant since February of 2022, and 1 physician and surgeon, either an MD or DO physician. This position has been vacant since September of 2019. Again, staff is working with DCA and the Governor's Appointment Office to get the last 2 positions filled. Unfortunately, I have not seen much in terms of anything happening with these 2 positions. So I have asked the Board and Bureau Relations to kind of check on this for us. So as soon as I get an update back from them, I will bring that back to you guys. And hopefully we'll be seeing something soon. So very hopeful here. Budget restrictions, again, you've heard in the DCA executive update that there are some budget restrictions in place due to shortfalls in state budget. No new hires will be sought for more than one reason. Of course, we have no budget in our own fund to do this with, so of course we won't be going and trying to get any new hires anytime soon. Only supplies and equipment that are determined to be required to carry out our mandated duties will be purchased until further notice. And then for the licensing, what I want to do is I'll just go over some really quick numbers today with the fiscal year 2023-24, and these are going to be what's going to be reported to the annual reporting at the end of this. Actually, we're kind of in the annual reporting process right now. So basically, we had, let's see here. We've got 1,037 active licensees currently. We've got 126 that are in a delinquent or expired state. We've got 9 in a retired kind of, if Apple, like they're wanting to be retired, so they're kind of pending until we get that retired status put into effect. We've got 25 inactive status members, and this was at the end of June 30th, 2024. Let's see here. We have 488 licensees that are IV therapy certified, just in case you guys wanted to know this. This isn't something that will be in the annual report, but it was a stat that I was able to get, so I wanted to provide that to you because, you know, there is some issues with IV therapy in the world of healthcare right now, and I know that our licensees aren't the ones that are the ones doing the wrong, but we do have a large population of our licensee, almost half, that are IV certified. Let's see here. So our grand total licensee population, including all of the inactives, are 1,197. The renewals for the last year, I believe we had 488 renewals. And that's down from the year before, which is usually in the 550 mark. So renewals are down a little bit. However, we've seen this in the past where one year will be down and then, you know, it'll be kind of like ebbs and highs. So there's going to be more than likely, and hopefully next year will be a high year, and then of course there'll be a low year. I think maybe it's just the population birth month of kind of where everything is on that. However, in the licensing for this last fiscal year, there were only 88 new applications that came in. We're usually at around 114. So there has been a decrease in the license application the last year. So just wanted to give you guys that information. Let's see here if I have any other information on this for you. I think that's all I have on that. I don't have any enforcement stats for you guys this time. I will be bringing it to you next time. Unfortunately, we just didn't have time to get to those this time around. So I will have that available during our next board meeting. And that concludes my report this meeting. Any questions?
Thank you, Rebecca. It looks like
Singleton?
Dr. Singleton has a question.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Singleton?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of questions. So do we have, well, let me start at the top. So in terms of new candidates that we're interviewing for board positions, do we have people in the queue at all or no? And do we need to do some kind of
So,
outreach for that?
great, thank you for that question. Actually, we had about, I want to say about 5 months ago, the governor's office, appointments office had reached out to me to do some checks on some licensees that they had kind of in their application queue. I provided that information back to them, but have not heard back anything from any of those pending applicants that they had checked on. So I don't know if they're still in the process or if maybe they just did not, it just didn't fit for what they were looking for. So we can probably start going out and putting some notices out to the public. Oh, you know what, and Judy from the DCA Board Bureau Relations is here, and she has something that she wants to add, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to her for a moment.
I do want to share with you that early in July, the appointment secretary accepted another position away from agency, and they are in a transitional period right now. And Curtis Lang is our new appointment secretary for the Healing Arts Boards. And ahead of this meeting, I did talk to Melissa Gear, who's the Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations, about the vacancies, and she did indicate she'll be reaching out to Rebecca to work with her and provide any assistance to get the positions filled. But I just wanted to let you know that agency is going through a transitional period right now.
Okay, so it's not for a lack of candidates.
Unfortunately, I don't know that. I'm not sure how many candidates they had. I only had a couple that they checked on, and none of them, of course, I wouldn't know if they had candidates on the MDDO side. They, of course, wouldn't reach out to me to ask me about those licensees, but, we will definitely be in contact and some communication with the appointments office to see if there is a need for some maybe advertisement to the medical board, the medical association, and to the osteopathic board and osteopathic medical association.
Okay, thank you. My second question has to do with the rate of increase. And I don't know if you have that statistic on hand. Maybe this is something for the next meeting. I'm just trying to get a sense of like what's the percent increase on a year-to-year basis of our licensee applications and acceptances.
I do have that, and what I can do is send that to you offline. I believe that we had it during the March 28th meeting, but it was some of the background meeting for that fee regulation package. So I'll send that to you offline,
Sure.
Dr. Singleton.
Okay, sure, thank you. That's it.
Any other comments or questions?
I don't see any other hands raised. I think we should open it for public comment.
And this is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the executive officer's report, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. You may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in that text box and click send. Are there any in-person attendees with questions? It looks like there are not, and I do not see any questions from WebEx. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are moving on to agenda item number 10. And this is our this is really our big one for the meeting. This is the review and possible approval of the California Board of Naturopathic Medicine's strategic plan for the next 5 years. So we are going to start with the executive summary of the strategic plan. We'll go over the intro that was written by me, and then move forward from there. Do you want to start with the executive summary, Rebecca?
Sure. So basically, the executive summary was put together by the SOLID team, and this was in your guys' meeting materials. And basically, it just goes over the strategic plan development, what we had for the during the planning session. The participants developed a total of 38 objectives for the following goal areas. The number of objectives per goal in the parentheses. So you guys have all of this information. So let me just go ahead and go over it again. Your goal areas was number 1, licensing. There were 6 objectives. Continuing education, there were 2 objectives. Enforcement, there were 6 objectives. Laws and regulations, 10 objectives. Board administration, 5, and stakeholder outreach, 9. The planning session summary, strategic planning agenda included the items listed below: welcome and introduction, diversity, equity, and inclusion videos, overview of the strategic planning process, the review, missions, and values refined during the board meeting on March 28th, the finalized vision statement, the overview of the SWOT analysis, the review goal areas and statements refined during that last board meeting in March, and the development of strategic objectives. So basically, this just gives a quick summary of kind of what we did during the strategic planning session. There was a lot of engagement between our board members and staff. Just to remind everybody that staff did what they are doing now in SOLID, and they did a pre-strategic planning session with the staff. Since staff does a lot of the day-to-day work, we get all of the comments and questions and frustration and kudos from our licensees, and so we really do have a good hand on kind of what's going on in the industry and with the licensees. So we were able to give a lot of our take on kind of what's going on in the board to the strategic plan. So we put together a strategic plan for you guys, and then brought it to you guys at the last board meeting in September. And basically what happened is, you know, everybody kind of talked about it. Board members made some amendments to those goals or the objective areas. And with that is what we used to develop this draft that you guys have in today's meeting material. So basically what we'll do here is we'll be going through the draft. There were some questions or suggestions made by the SOLID team. There were a couple of comments from myself back to them so that we can kind of identify maybe some of the things that don't need to be changed because we already have something in place, or there were some questions, I believe, also from the DCA's executive staff. So we'll go ahead and we'll start going through these and try to get done here. I know that we do have a hard stop today at 3 o'clock. So we're going to try to get through this quickly, but I want to make sure that we're fair to everybody's time and that we can answer any questions and really get into this draft and make sure that we have, you know, crossed all of our T's and dotted all of our I's. So I thank you so much for putting in the hard work. Dr. Dara Thompson came up with her president's letter that was sent out to you guys last night. So I'll be formatting a new photo on there for her, and we'll be including that in the first part of the draft, just like our last one. So, but you guys do have a copy of that draft letter that was sent out last night. Are there any questions on the summary?
Dr. Yin?
Yes.
Dr. Yoon?
So I did read the summary, just need to make a comment that my name is spelled incorrectly on there. I'm not quite sure if Solid is responsible for that or if we need to make those revisions. Also, during the summary, it did actually, to me, reflect negatively on the board regarding how our attention and our participation was. And I'm not quite sure if you have any experience or thought or discussion with Solid regarding what we could have done to possibly have made the strategic planning go better, or if there was any thoughts on that.
Yeah, you know, I noticed that too when I was going over this. I am meaning to give Solid a call on this because we actually got a lot of great feedback from this. So I was a little taken aback when I seen this because I was like, well, they were actually pretty engaged. So I'm not sure why. Maybe that was left in from a prior one. So I will be finding out about that and getting back to you guys on that summary. But I was kind of taken back about that as well. And then, of course, the lunch break information on there, you know, that it wasn't ideal. Unfortunately, we have to give staff at least 45 minutes for lunch due to union, you know, policies and stuff. So, you know, it is unfortunate. I know that if you guys had it your way, you would have worked right through lunch. And I know you guys as a board, I know you guys personally. So I felt that it was kind of a little bit of negativeness in there too. I don't know if that's how it was meant to be presented to us, but I will be finding out kind of if there was any reason for that specifically.
Thank you. And Dr.
Of
Thompson,
course.
I liked your board president message.
So much. I feel like with that message, I really tried to incorporate some of the things that were most important to us when we went through this strategic plan moving forward about really being, you know, such a vital resource in the public health crisis in California. Mr. Yam?
Thank you. You definitely want to echo. I think the board president's message was great. And so you know, I guess I just have a quick question, or like I guess a quick or not necessarily. Sorry, let me take that back a little bit. In terms of like the comments that are being left, or at least the summary, like where does it go? Who does it go to again? I don't know if it was mentioned already, but I didn't quite catch that. Like who gets a copy of like this record?
Are you talking about the comments from
I'm
Solid
sorry.
that we were just talking about?
Yes. Like, is this a copy sent to like leadership in DCA, or like where does this go to?
I don't know. This is the first time that we've ever had a strategic planning executive summary given to us or provided to us before we've just done the strategic plan. So I think this is something new that the Solid plan or Solid team has come up with. So I will be checking with that. But to my knowledge, this summary is not part of the actual strategic plan.
Right. No, I'm asking this question because I wonder who's reading this and then they read it and say, okay, well, oh, is this what happened in there?
Yeah, and that's why I was a little taken aback by this because I'm like, well, if anybody actually watches the meeting, there was a lot of engagement. There was a lot of talking back and forth. Yes, you guys did take a lot of what we had prepared for you, but there was still a lot of amendments. But we did have some buy-in, and it's because you guys were in agreement. You guys as board members are very engaged when it comes to what the staff goes through. And you do rely heavily on what happens in in the day-to-day with the board. And so when the staff brings that to you guys, you know, you listen and you do a very good job at making sure that you take that and you incorporate it in what our mandates are as a board. So I don't think that there was anything wrong with that. It's similar to the, you know, ways that we've done this in the past, although, you know, in the past it was that the staff was weighing in at the strategic planning meeting, and then you guys were taking that and putting it into a strategic plan. It just wasn't done beforehand. So I think it just kind of minimized the time it took during the strategic planning session, but I don't think it took away from the board putting in their, you know, their input. So again, I was a little taken aback by the summary.
Sure, and I'm not necessarily sort of. I mean, I know. I mean, I was there, and as we all were, the hard work that was put into putting this together, and I guess my question, like back to the question, is like I'd like to find out who gets a copy of this, right? Like whether it's DC leadership or whether it's our appointing officers, or the appointing, you know, the appointing elected legislators. Because, you know, and can or like, is there a way to kind of appeal this? Because I mean, it doesn't look, I mean, it doesn't look and it doesn't sound very nice, right? And without, again, I mean, I mean, everything that comes out of the state of California is like a public document, right? So in theory, this could be like a records request, right? And I think that this, in my opinion, is somewhat of a very interesting representation of the meeting.
Sure, agreed.
Hi,
I will reach out to Solid and find out.
Yeah, I think this is Dr. Thompson, and I just wanted to make two comments. The first was that, you know, because this is apparently new for Solid, perhaps the way it's worded, like maybe they're just trying to give constructive feedback, and it just came across in a way that maybe they need to work on their wording a little bit on that. But I think also it is such an important point to point out that in order for that session to go smoothly and not last for 10 hours or have to be split into two sessions, we did a lot of preparation ahead of time. And so there were several sections where they were like, is there anything you want to change here? And there weren't, because we had done the groundwork beforehand, you know, not because we didn't care, but because we'd done the work. So I think that's just, you know, something that we all know to be true.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. And just if I could also add one last thing as well, like I would like a report back on this at some point.
Yes, I'll make sure to get that back to you guys.
The next thing here was the board president message. Any other comments on that? Okay. And then the next item, strategic planning session PowerPoint completed. Can you actually don't quite understand what this bullet point is supposed to mean, Rebecca?
Sure. So basically, all this is we provided you a copy of the strategic planning sessions PowerPoint that was used during the session, with all of the comments and everything that were kind of interpreted and pulled in by the Solid team when they were kind of transcribing the stuff for us. So basically, this is just a completed document, and it's just for your guys's kind of recall needs if you needed it. And this is what they used to make the draft of the strategic plan.
Yeah, I really appreciated being able to see all the comments.
So if there are no questions on the PowerPoint presentation document, then we can go ahead and start going through the draft. And we'll just basically kind of go through it one by one with the comments and allow you guys time to, you know, see if there's anything that you want to amend or, you know, change, anything like that. So we'll go ahead and start moving through this. So of course, on page 5, the board's president's letter will be added there for the message, her forward, and we will put a picture in there as well. We'll also be working with the public affairs office so that they can make it look all nice, because that's what they do best. So definitely reach out to them and have them assist us again, because they do a really great job at formatting.
And then will we also be listing the vice president and the secretary on that page?
I haven't seen any other strategic plans with a message from the vice president and secretary, but I can definitely check to see if that's appropriate. But we will be adding them on if it's not already in here. All right, so page 5 is where we'll be adding the messaging. You guys can take a look at your page 6. It's the values, and here's where you guys had asked that it not be in any hierarchy. So we did this kind of circular where it kind of all encompasses around the consumer protection. So you have the access, the collaboration, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, the integrity, and the quality health care. Again, the mission, visions, and values are all here. There are no changes there. Next, page 6, the goals for licensing, goal 1. You had 7 objectives here. And upper management was interested in the transparency. Let me see if I can see all this. The transparency and accuracy issues the board's having with data reporting. So I don't know that we were having transparency or accuracy. I think we're just wanting to make sure that we're capturing everything that we needed here in the licensing. So basically, before we weren't giving, information on how many people did IV certification. Here we can. So I think just basically when the board was speaking on the increase of transparency and accuracy of licensing data and reporting, basically they just wanted, you guys were asking for more of the data to be provided. And so basically that's what we're going to start doing is doing more reporting, pulling more data from the free online system and see about getting those numbers out to the interested parties more. And then there was a question of whether we wanted to keep the objective 1.4 here or put it under the enforcement. And that has actually changed. The 1.4 was changed to 1.6. So it's develop resource and tools to inform licensees of regulations and increase compliance. And they're wanting to know if that would be better under the enforcement.
How many bullet points do we have under enforcement right now?
I'm sorry?
How many bullet points do we have under enforcement right now?
Let's see here. We have 5.
I mean, not like we have to have all of them matched, but there's a lot of information under licensing. And this bullet point isn't directly involved in the actual licensing of naturopathic doctors, but rather is about, continued compliance, which of course is, it's a component of licensing and it's a component of enforcement. They're linked, right? We enforce
Sure.
that our licensees follow the law. But yeah, I may be interested in moving that. Which goal is enforcement?
Enforcement goal is number 3.
Okay, so we're going to see that pretty soon. Maybe decide when we get there.
Yes. Okay. All right, so moving right along to goal number 2, which is the continuing education. Basically, there are 2 objectives here. One is maintain a current list of approved continuing education courses on the board's website, and 2.2 is establish continuing education programs, procedures, and best practices. So basically, there were a couple of comments here from the SOLID team. One is that they understood and asked, recommended during the planning session that the board combine this goal area with licensing, and that it was already decided not to combine this. However, Brian Clifford, so the executive office, would like to share his thoughts and believes that it does not make sense to include CE as a separate goal area rather than combine with licensing. So again, this is definitely something that you guys can make that determination. Since it's your strategic plan, we've always had the continuing education a separate piece from licensing. But again, it's up to you whether you wanted to put this under licensing. At that point, it would be licensing and continuing education, and we would have, let's see here. We'd have about 7 or 8 objectives under that goal if you were to combine them. Again, we did discuss this during the last strategic planning session meeting, and it was determined at that time that we would keep them separate.
My concerns, Dr. Thompson, my concern about combining them is that we have some very significant issues in continuing education that need to be addressed. As you know, Rebecca, that we have no ability to change our continuing education standards right now. So it's very forefront in my mind that continuing education is a specific goal and unto itself because of that. But I also see how it is important for licensing. Just to remind the other board members of this issue that I'm referring to, when we did the IV therapy regulation package, it came to our kind of understanding that the way our statute is listed, that we have no ability whatsoever to ever change our continuing education requirements, even if new procedures or new sort of types of practice come into play. We can't modify or change our continuing education to meet that the way our law is currently written. So that's something we actively need to work on in the next 5 years, because in my opinion, if we're going to protect the public, we need to be able to require our licensees to be properly educated in what they're doing. So anyways, that would be my reason for keeping it as separate, but I'd be interested in other people's comments.
This is Dr. Yoon. I agree with you. I think it is better as a second category. And I think that under the category, what we're looking for is a little bit different than the continuing education for licensing purposes only. And so I feel like this would be better under the separate category.
Would the board members be okay with me placing this as board members would like to keep this as a separate goal area?
I think that's appropriate.
I agree. This is Dr. Singleton.
I'm also in agreement. This is Andy.
Agreed.
All right, great. Well, I've made note. All right, and the next one is that for 2.1, the word maintain, they wanted to know if they should add create, so it reads create and maintain a list. I actually took the liberty of responding to this because we already have a list that's been created. We do maintain it. As a matter of fact, it was just updated about 2 weeks ago. So this is something that I believe that the board just wants us to continue and make sure that that is being done at a consistent pace. So we will be doing this at a kind of a more I guess, accelerated timeline instead of, quarterly, we'll just do it monthly to make sure that we're capturing everything that has been approved by us or that the CNDA has approved, and we're putting it on the list so that board members know of CE that's available to them in advance. Were there any questions about the goal area 2?
I agree with you that create is inaccurate. So.
All right, I have made note of that. Thank you. All right, and going on to goal area 3 for enforcement. So basically, they want to know if objective 2 and 3 on slide 43 have been combined to 3.2. So let me take a look really quick at slide 43. Bird.
If you'd like me to display that on screen, just let me know.
Yes, would you? There's 2 of them that could be 43. Unfortunately, these are not numbered
Oh, certainly.
on our handout.
One moment while I pull that up.
Oh, I do see it. Okay, so it would be the objective 2 or the issue 2 and issue 3. What they did was they, Solid has combined the 2 to make one objective out of it. So basically enhancing enforcement capabilities and reducing investigation time. It would be this page here that's on your screen now. It'll be the second and third topic.
So I'm not
So if you guys are
sure,
okay.
Are they asking a question or are they telling us what they did?
So they did that just for ease, the sake of easiness, but they're wanting to make sure that they have your buy-in, or they can put it back to make 2 separate objectives.
Oh, I see. So they combined it and they're just letting us know that they combined it to make sure we're okay with that.
That is correct, yes.
Does
So
anyone?
if you guys like how it reads.
Yeah. Can we go back to that slide, please? Sorry, super squeaky chair. I apologize to everyone.
So which slide would you prefer?
The previous one that
The-
was goal number 3 and then the
The
bullet
revised
points.
write-up. Okay, one sec, please.
The draft.
And Raquel, I believe you should be able to go back to the planning materials that were preloaded. Perfect, thank you.
So the new objective would read, enhance techniques and tools to increase case investigation efficiency and decrease average investigation completion times.
The comment says 3.2 though. It's like noted on 3.1, but it says 3.2. Identify and implement enforcement process improvements.
Oh, yes, you are correct. Identify and implement enforcement process improvements, enhance enforcement capabilities.
Which I
reduce
think is
investigation
actually
time.
the two things that we just, because one was identify and one was implement, wasn't it, on the previous slide?
Right, yes.
Yes, I believe the note talks about the line numbers on the PowerPoint slide being combined with this, and then presumably this 3.3 appears in the PowerPoint as 3.4, and it just scooted up one number.
Right.
I mean, my experience of this is that I had to read it 3 times to understand what they were saying, but once I did understand what it meant. Because enforcement process improvements is a bit of a mouthful. So identify and implement improvements in the enforcement process, I think would read better for me. But I don't feel too strongly about that.
Were there any other comments or amendments that you guys would like? It seems like everybody's okay with the combination of the objective 2 and 3 on slide 43 to be the new 3.2 on this slide. Okay. I have made note of that. Any other concerns or questions, suggestions on any of the other objectives?
Well, weren't we going to go back to 1 and see if we wanted to, now that we're looking at these bullet points, see if we wanted to move that one item from licensing to enforcement? I'm sorry, I've
So
forgotten
basically,
what the item was.
Nope, it's fine. So that's going to be license. It's under your license objectives. And it is $1.6. Let's see, would you like to keep objective 1.4 here? So it's develop resources and tools to inform licensees of regulations and increase compliance.
So this is basically an objective to let the licensees know, number 1, this is what you're allowed to do. And number 2, if something changes, what you're allowed to do changed and now you need to comply with this, correct?
Correct.
So can we go back to goal 3 and see if there's anything that's duplicative there? Investigation, enforcement, collaborative relationships, develop comprehensive reporting framework for enforcement activities, increase compliance, penalties to deter repeat offenses. I feel like if we were going to put it in here, we would put it between 3.4 and 3.5. Like, first we educate everyone, and then if they don't do it, then we increase our penalties to deter people from not following the rules. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, I think it would work well if we moved it here, if we put it in that position. Does anyone else have opinion on that?
I agree. I think it fits in well after 3.4.
All right, so I have to move the 1.6 on the goal area 1 to the enforcement goal area between objective 3.4 and 3.5.
Yes, please.
Perfect. All right. Any other changes to the enforcement goal area 3? All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move along to goal area 4, laws and regulations. We've got a couple of comments on this one. So on 4.5, strengthen compliance requirements where necessary to deter enforcement violations. The question is, where are these codified in regulations or statutes? Is there a need to pursue legislation? So I don't think that we would need to pursue any statutes, any legislation for statutes. I think this is all stuff that we already have within our regulations, and basically, you know, once upon a time, we just didn't have the staff to go after everybody for cite and fines. Let's give not changing your address, for example. We weren't citing and fining people, but we just didn't have the staff to do so. So we had, you know, if we got a letter back in the mail, our staff was just sending them an email saying, hey, we got something back. What's your new email? You need to make the change. And there wasn't a cite and fine going out for it. Well, we do have staff now. And so we actually are going to be citing and fining people for not having a correct address on file for, you know, because that's part of the statute and regulations, is they're supposed to make a change of address within 14 days of moving. So these are the types of things that, you know, in order to strengthen the compliance and deter those enforcement violations, you know, citing and fining was one of the things that we had discussed during the strategic planning session. And I know that this is one of those things that we were planning on doing here. So I don't know that there is going to be a need for us to pursue legislation unless there's something that you guys feel that we've have in the industry where, you know, we have doctors who are not obeying the law currently and that we need to strengthen some laws or something like that. So I'll go ahead and put that back on you guys and, you know, refer to you to see if that's something that you're wanting to do.
So Rebecca, if I understand correctly, you're saying this is already in regulation? Because one of the questions was, is this already in regulation or statutes? You're saying it's already in regulation?
Correct. We have regulations that allow us to cite and fine or start enforcement actions on, you know, licensees who are not in compliance with the statutes. Unfortunately, we just didn't have the staffing in the past to go after every single buddy just for, you know, little, and it's not like it's little, but for not putting a new address of address, or I'm sorry, a new address of record on file with us. And so it's things like that that we can actually go after them for. So these are the things that now that we actually have a staff member that does nothing but enforcement, we have the staff now that can do these things. So I know that, our enforcement program is going to be strengthened because we have a sole person working that. And so I don't know that we necessarily have to make any changes here. Now we have the person that can actually do it. So again, if there's something that you guys, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think that for me, then the issue is in the wording, because it does say strengthen compliance requirements, which indicates that the actual compliance requirements are going to change. Whereas what you're saying is we have adequate requirements. We need to actually increase our enforcement of them now that we have the staff to do so. So I do think I actually agree with Solid that there is a wording issue there.
Okay.
Because the way it's worded, it sounds like we're going to require more of our licensees around their, that there are going to be increased restrictions, et cetera. Whereas what we're saying is we have adequate things in place. We just need to actually enforce them. And then it says to deter enforcement violations. So it kind of goes back to the last one, it was going to be 3.5, but now it's going to be 3.6, saying almost exactly the same thing. And so I'm wondering if we even need this bullet point, since we have that other one under enforcement, which says more like what we need to say. Can we go back to goal 3?
So it would be, it's actually still under goal 1 licensing, which is to develop give me a second. Develop resources and tools to inform licensees of regulations and increase compliance.
I guess neither one of those is actually, I was thinking of 3.5, which is going to be 6, but neither of one of them actually says exactly what you're trying to say here, or what we are trying to say here, which is basically we need to actually enforce the rules that we have in place. But I do feel like that one, can we go back to 4 again? Sorry. I do feel like that one is problematically worded on 4. The strengthen compliance requirements. Do other people have an opinion on this?
Would you, Dr. Thompson, would you like to maybe change where necessary to when necessary? I mean, we've got 5 years of this plan here, and I mean, something could come up, but we have, the IV therapy thing that's going on right now with the nurses and the, licensees that don't have the education and training to be providing the type of IV therapy that they do. And so with our licensees, I know we're not having that issue yet, not that we've noticed, but I mean, who knows, we could have a licensee that just sets up a hydration drip bar and is not giving exams. So if something like that were to come into play, then maybe we need to go and strengthen our statutes to make sure that they're very, you know what I'm saying? So maybe not take it all the way out, but.
So then if we say this isn't about what we were saying earlier, where it's like, I mean, we can say it's about actually enforcing things as needed now that we have the staff to do so. But it's more about the ability, not like with their question where it says, is this in regulation or is it in statute? We could say, not yet. We want the ability to do that if needed. Is that what you're saying, Rebecca?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Great. Well, then if that's what that's about, then I think yes, in my opinion, similar to the continuing education, we absolutely need to be able to change compliance requirements as needed as the field changes. Like that seems clear. Yes. So in that case, I don't know if the where or when actually makes a difference to me personally. Does anyone else have an opinion? All right, then let's move
Or
on.
as necessary.
I like as necessary, actually. That I think is more in line with what we were saying.
Perfect. Okay, so I have changed that.
And then this next comment, again, I'm a little confused because it's noted on 4.6, but the number they refer to is 4.5.
So just so you guys are aware, these were the objectives were given to us in one order, but there was a suggestion because she just took it directly off of how they were numbered in the strategic planning session, the PowerPoint. So basically what she did was she put them just as they are numbered in the slides. And when she sent it over to us, she said that, you know, this actually makes more sense if we were to order it in this. So I actually looked at it and those orders were better. They just sounded better. So I went ahead and had those put into order already for you guys. So that's why some of these are kind of, she says 4.5, but it's 4.6. But the comment is attached to the correct objective, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Of course.
So which are the two that were combined? Now that we're on the different one, I can't see the comment. Was it 4 and 5 or 5 and 6?
It's so 4.5. So it's actually 4.6 now. So promote inclusive stakeholder participation in legislative and regulatory processes, and it is going to be objective 5 and 8 on slides 51 and 52 under the regulations. So laws and regulations, slides 5 and 8.
Okay.
So enhance regulatory clarity, promote inclusive participation.
Okay, can we go back to what they changed it to?
Promote inclusive stakeholder participation in the legislative and regulatory processes.
Do you see any issue with combining those? I'm always for being more concise when we can.
Yeah, I actually thought they were a good combination.
Do any other board members have an issue with that combination? All right. And then we move on to the comment regarding scope, which is just a reminder to the board members of the background of this. I think everyone already knows this. In general, it is not the role of the board to address issues of scope. That is something that the state organization, which in our case is the CNDA, would do and that they do work on. We have in the past taken a position as the board that the scope of naturopathic doctors in California is so restrictive that it creates the potential for public harm, and therefore we have supported the scope expansion because for public protection. So that's just kind of the background on that. And then Rebecca, do you want to read the comment here?
Yeah, so basically, the DCA's opinion on this is that the board should not try to affect legislation that expands scope in any way for the licensees. That is definitely something that the association is supposed to be doing. I know in the past, like you said, we have supported, different legislative efforts that the CNDA has tried to push through. I know that we have received calls from consumers who were concerned that their licensee down here in California cannot provide them the same scope of naturopathic medicine as their ND in Oregon. So there is an issue that, there's the parity isn't there from our neighboring states. Again, this is something that we've brought up in the past to our legislature in sunset reviews. This is the reason that we don't have a population that stays here. So again, I can only bring this information to you guys as the board. It is your responsibility and role to decide what kind of legislation you seek. But I can only bring you the information that we have from consumers. And basically, consumers are not happy with the scope that the NDs here in California have.
Do we, as a rule, seek any legislation?
Yes, we do. And we can.
Okay. Mr. Yam.
Yeah, thanks. In reviewing, I think these documents, I would say that for the other stuff, I think that my colleagues, of course, being practicing NDs, probably have a good handle on. This is the one where I wanted to definitely mention something. I think that one, I guess, I think challenge that I have is coming back to the equity component, right? Or also whether that as a board we take actions that are incorporative of what is best for the consumer. And we talked about, I think, in some of the parts about filling the healthcare gap, right? And so this is why I guess I was kind of drawn to this, because I think that while I understand the logic behind that we're not advocates for NDs. We're advocates for the consumers. But if in the case that doing this is advocating for the consumer, that just so happens to be parallel to what perhaps may be of interest to the professional association, I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I guess that's just maybe me thinking about the semantics of the situation, or how the different. I think that it's just, again, coming back to where when as we pursue, right, again, the protecting consumer, how are we doing it and what's the best way to do it? And I think that that legislation is a key piece of this. So that's just my bit why perhaps I may not completely agree with the comment provided.
I definitely understand it. I understand where DCA is coming from. We definitely do not want to look like we are trying to pursue scope expansion for naturopathic doctors, that we're here for the licensees, because that is definitely not our mandate. Our role as a board is to protect the public. However, it's a little bit different here because we did have the role and responsibility when we were first started as a bureau under the Department of Consumer Affairs back in 2005. There were things that the legislature asked us as the bureau to do. Those items were done. That report was given back to the legislature, but no action was ever taken on that. So we are still sitting here with a, independent prescribing authority that's very, very minimal, because there was no action taken on the report that was provided that said that naturopathic doctors in California have the training and education that should be able to, have a full formulary of prescribing. And so I think what we're trying to do when we do our legislative efforts is to just basically complete the tasks that were given to the board when they were first originally created back in 2005. So that's just my take on this, and this is just the historic information that I can provide to you, and you guys can feel free to do what you will with that. Again, I don't want it to look like the board is, advocating on the side of the licensees, because that's not what we're doing, but we are trying to affect what the legislature provided to us as a task when we were first created.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. I wanted to hear what Dr. Yoon has to say.
Yes, I understand regarding not promoting the scope of practice for the licensees. I think that there are also other legislation that's out there that we as a board need to either support or seek or oppose, I guess, to make sure, again, that we are focusing on the consumer protection. So I'm wondering if we can change this to be seek or support legislation to enhance consumer accessibility and safety, and get rid of the scope of practice portion, because there are things like the law that was more recently passed that allowed naturopathic doctors to continue using the doctor title, which I think is also something that's going to help support the consumer safety and accessibility. I think the scope of practice portion, I agree, was initially when the law was created, we were supposed to be able to effectively update, I think, our scope of practice as a board as changes were being made. But I think that this is a whole nother can of worms, I think. And if we're up for that in the next 5 years, we should include it. But I also think that we could be a little bit more have a more generalized statement to be able to include all of these potential legislation things that do come up that we would like to also be a part of.
I think that's a really excellent point, because it includes not only what our goal is now, but also, the things that may occur moving forward. And I think really the question for us is, how heavy-handed do we want to be about the scope of practice? Because I absolutely agree with Dr. Yoon that it is a more broad statement, and it would likely be better received. And then there's the other perspective to say this particular issue around scope is an ongoing issue that we see as a consumer safety issue. So, I really could go either way personally. Mr. Yam?
Thank you. I want to appreciate Dr. Yoon for also offering that perspective as well. If I recall, and it has been a little while, I feel like we intentionally chose update, right? If I'm not mistaken, I want to say that we went through that process of thinking through, because I firmly agree, right? Scope expansion, in itself is something that the association or the professional association is supposed to take up. But if I recall correctly, we like really thought about like why would we put this in the first place, right? And it was acknowledging, I think, some of the shortcomings in what is our ability to ensure that consumers are the most protected or are protected in our rule in the practice of us as a board regulating naturopathic medicine. Is that correct?
Well, and I think also, now that you bring that up, I think you're correct. It was also acknowledging the history that the scope of practice was supposed to be updated and it hasn't been. It is not as if the board is asking for something new. They are trying to complete a project that hasn't been done. And this was really brought to our attention by the regulatory attorney, Christy, who I think she's gone now, but she was here earlier, where she said, you were supposed to have already done several things according to your statute that haven't been done, and this is one of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Dr. Thompson, for adding that.
So just to comment though, I think that updating scope of practice may not actually be the issue. It's the portion that allows licensees to practice to the full extent of their training, I think may actually be more of the area where we're overstepping our bounds to be able to say what our licensees should be able to do versus what is a law and regulation.
You're saying that we're not even necessarily looking for parity with training, we're just looking for consumer safety. Parity with training is a different issue. That is the issue of the CNDA. And what we should be saying is update scope of practice to enhance consumer accessibility and safety, and taking out to allow licensees to practice to the full extent of their training.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a lot easier to read and it isn't exclusionary. Like, it doesn't say what we are, it seems perfectly reasonable. It just makes it a shorter, easier to read sentence that won't cause as much trouble.
I don't know, Rebecca, whether or not that would solve the issue of the conflict.
What part of that are you wanting to take out? The full extent of their licensing or their training?
To allow licenses to to allow licensees to practice to the full extent of their training. So it would be more seek legislation. Oh my gosh, I cannot read today. Seek legislation to update scope of practice to enhance consumer accessibility and safety.
Gotcha. Okay, done.
Are there any more comments on this particular bullet point? I am aware that it's 1:04 and we're supposed to take lunch at this point. So I just want to make sure there's no other comments on goal area 4, because this is a great transition point for us. We can come back after lunch and address goal area 5. Any last comments?
I have a last comment. This is Dr. Singleton. Are we stuck on the order of these bullet points?
Is there an order that you want to change?
No, if you, go ahead.
I'm, as we were discussing, I think that whatever we have pulled forward from previous strategic plans should be listed first if they're not accomplished. So whatever we decide about 4.7, I think that should be primary. If that, and this comment goes across to all bullet points. If there are issues that we have not solved or rectified, then they should be primary in terms of list order. That's my opinion. We can also just talk about that after lunch also.
I'd like to table that for after lunch because I do think it would require a little bit of discussion. So why don't we discuss that when we get back from lunch? It's now 1:05 and we need 1:06 and we need a 45-minute lunch. So we could come back at 1:51.
Great.
All right, everyone
See you guys
enjoy
after
lunch. All right, so I think we should do a roll call to make sure everyone's back.
Perfect. Dr. Dara Thompson,
Present.
Dr. Mina Yoon,
Present.
Dr. Vera Singleton,
Present.
Dr. Satara Tice,
Present.
Mr. Andy Yam,
Present.
you, and we have quorum.
Fantastic. So when we left, Dr. Singleton had brought up the question of if previous goals which have not been met should be listed first in our strategic plan. Does anyone have an opinion on that? I mean, I understand what you're saying, Dr. Singleton, but I would say it would be my opinion that we should, if we're going to worry too much about the order, we would order things sort of like by priority, although that can be a can of worms trying to figure out what that's going to be. Dr. Yoon has something to say.
Yeah, so I was thinking about Dr. Singleton's comment during lunchtime, and this actually brought me back to what we were talking about with our last point on the scope of practice, because that was what was probably what caused her to initiate that it should be listed as a priority because of what was because it's been so long standing. And I just went back to the Naturopathic Doctors Act, regarding kind of the regulations. And I think that we probably still need to go back and rewrite the last sentence, last point, because I think it still is not expressing what we want to do regarding the scope of practice. And I had made a note because after reading 3627, the of the Naturopathic Act regarding the naturopathic formulary, regarding something about updating the naturopathic formulary, because it is stated in our law to reflect advances in medicine and the training of our licensees for consumer protection and safety. Any thoughts?
And if anybody needs me to read section 3627 to them, I can.
Can you put it up on screen? That might be helpful.
Let me see if somebody can get that put up on the screen. I may be able to share my screen if they give me, oh, no, I'm not on. Never mind, I can't. It's not, you'd have to bring it up online. It's a website, on our website to our statutes.
Okay.
Let me see.
Is it easy to find from the naturopathic website?
It is.
Okay, I can try and get that up. 1 second here.
I'll put it in the chat.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much.
First.
All right. And which act was it, or which section?
Article 2.
All right. Administration.
And then all the way down to the bottom. 3627.
All right. And is that large enough to be visible for you?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
And I did notice, Rebecca, that this says committee instead of board, still on 3627A.
Dr. Yoon, I'm so sorry, we went through a couple of things there. I just want to clarify what your actual recommendation was, just so I'm totally clear on that.
Sure. When we were reviewing the strategic planning, under the last point that we were discussing, we were trying to not conflict with the scope of practice, saying that we want to increase the scope of practice. But accordingly, I think what Naturopathic Doctors Act does allow us that we are supposed to be able to establish a naturopathic formulary. And that is supposed to be making recommendations regarding prescribing, ordering, and furnishing the authority of a naturopathic doctor. And I feel like that after we had made changes to our last point, it doesn't fully reflect, I think, what we initially wanted in that bullet point, which went back to Dr. Singleton's comment about what needs to be, what has been kind of on our long running list of things should have priority. And I think this was part of the priority that probably needs to be moved up first, and but specified. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think it doesn't fully address the order issue, and then we go back to, do we want to change the wording again? I mean, I absolutely understand what you're saying. I feel like if someone comes from the outside and looks at what we're doing, they're like, what are you doing messing with scope? And then we have to explain to them, we were supposed to do this. This was our job. We're trying to do it, and it keeps getting blocked, you know?
Correct. Yeah.
And it's just, part of it's that we're just such a newer board that a lot of boards haven't been in this position.
And so my thought was just, again, I know that wasn't necessarily Dr. Singleton's point, was that as we're prioritizing things, our last bullet point was more to just kind of work on legislation that will kind of help with consumer protection, but that actually is an ongoing thing versus something that that we have been kind of wanting to focus on, which has been on our list for a long period of time, which would be this. That's how my brain worked in getting to this point.
So you think we should go back to the original wording, or do you think we should come up with different wording?
I think we still need to come up with different wording. But based on this, based on 3627, we can instead kind of work a little bit more on utilizing the same wording regarding the naturopathic formulary versus saying something about increasing the scope of practice. So it's a little bit more, again, what is actually something that the board is able to do versus what the association is trying to do.
Do you think we should focus that bullet point specifically on formulary, which is one of the biggest issues with naturopathic scope in California, incidentally?
Correct.
And do you think we then need 2 bullet points? Because we also need kind of the new one we put together, which is like, we need to be able to develop new legislation as things grow and change in California.
Yes.
That's true.
Mhm.
And we also need to go back and do the things that we were supposed to do 15 years ago and still haven't been able to
Exactly.
put in.
And
And
put that as a higher priority if we're going with Dr. Singleton's idea of putting things that have been longstanding higher on the list.
okay.
So yes, keeping it as two separate things. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Rebecca, is there any issue with us adding things at this point in the solid planning thing? Like, is that going to be a problem since we haven't run it past solid? Rebecca, if you're talking, I can't hear you.
This is the moderator. I do know that at one point the connection had dropped. We may need to unmute. Let's see, they are going to attempt to reconnect because they did have an issue with the new connection not having outgoing sound. They can hear us, but we cannot hear them.
And just a reminder, moderator, that we're actually still on goal 4.
All righty, thank you. So
We're
Raquel, if
just
you
trying to finish goal 4 up. Thank
oops,
you so much.
certainly. There we are. All right, let's try and get this. All right, and so now let's see if the board can unmute yourself now. The call-in user. And as again, a call-in user, you may have to press *9 or *6 to unmute. From the WebEx side, you're still muted. Thank you for the update. They are still working on correcting the volume issue, correcting the sound issue.
I guess while they're working through the tech issues, I know that we have a good amount to cover still. And yet this is important. Um, so I'm wondering if what we do if we run out of time today, or are we making it a priority to get through this entire strategic plan today?
Unfortunately, we have a hard stop at 3 today. And
Understood.
so if we don't finish the strategic plan in this meeting, it will be finished in the January meeting,
Sure.
which I think is still, within the timeline of when it needs to be finished. So it's the very beginning of 2025, but would love to hear Rebecca's opinion on that when we can actually hear her.
Mm-hmm. Well, just to express my opinion, and I think that adding that additional bullet point would help for clarity's sake. So perhaps we need to just run through some drafts on that and maybe submit it back for comment to Rebecca, or for Rebecca to sort of create something from what Dr. Yoon had in mind.
I agree that it's an important point, and I was thinking something along the lines of wording that starts with the word complete, or, just so it really draws the attention to the fact that there is business that has been, for lack of a better word, dangling for a while, that needs to actually be completed. So I think that's something for us to absolutely consider.
Do we have a place that we can actually see the wording and work on like a working document on the page?
I don't believe so. I think, if you had a thought of something that you wanted to see, I mean, possibly we could type it into the chat, or we could ask one of the people who do have the ability to put something on the screen.
Okay, so I'm just going to put a version that I put together really quickly during lunchtime,
Okay.
and just make clarification here. I'll
And you're
put
going to
that
put
in
that in the chat?
Q&A, yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Oops. Except the Q&A is not working. Let's see here.
We're thwarted by technical difficulties.
Maybe.
And we do have a new login from another call-in number. Again, it appears that you're muted from the WebEx side. And this again might be pressing *6 might unmute you. And for the participants, I am going to open up the chat feature. We don't usually use that, but we only have one public member and we do have business we're trying to conduct. So I will open that up. So now there is a chat button along the bottom. And that chat will go to, I can make it to go to all panelists.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and Rebecca, on your phone, if you press *6, does it announce anything or do anything?
Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Well, now
Okay.
it's working.
Wonderful.
So this is, I'm using my cell phone to call in on this. So we still don't have our speakerphone. I'm not sure what's going on with that.
So, but you can hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you. We're just
Okay.
kind of low volume on the side, but that's fine. We'll try to reconnect the speakerphone. But for now, this is good. Let's go ahead and move forward so that we're not wasting precious time.
All right, and then the laptop in the room, are you able to access the WebEx chat? Because member Yoon has typed in some proposed phrasing for 4.7. I may be able to put it on the screen. One moment.
If you go down up to your right, the little, yeah. Pull that down or up.
I hear a phone.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
And so where do you guys want this 4.7 to go? You just want this 4.7 updated to state that?
So the idea was that 4.7 would stay in its current position and have updated language, but that we would add another bullet point, which Mina has written a draft that states new, and under it says update the naturopathic formulary as stated in the law to reflect advances in medicine and the training of the licensee for consumer protection and safety.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Try that again, Rebecca?
Just to let you know, the more audio devices we have active in the room, the more the chances to echo. I do see the cell phone just dropped, so try pressing *6 from the room phone. Okay,
Can
so
you
now
guys
you're
hear us?
unmuted. Yes, whew.
Perfect. All right.
Okay,
So
so
for 4
just to review, so yeah, 4.7 is just that top sentence in the chat. And then we had discussed adding another bullet point where it says update the naturopathic formulary as stated in the law to reflect advances in medicine and the training of the licensee for consumer protection and safety. Because as Dr. Yoon pointed out, that is actually written into our law and has not been concluded.
Can you scroll all the way so I can see the top? Thanks. Okay, I'm updating it now.
I like this in general. I especially like the to reflect advances in medicine and the training of the licensee because I think that's really key. I do feel like it has a lot of commas in it, and I wonder if there's some way to make it a little less like it's a little bit run-on-y. No offense, Mina. Just I wonder if there's a way to streamline it just a little bit.
I am in no offense whatsoever. I miss Dr. Greta for that purpose. I'm not a wordsmith whatsoever.
Okay. Because I feel like they're important points. Like as stated in the law is really important so that we don't get the pushback. And I really like to reflect advances in medicine and the training of the licensee. I feel like for consumer protection safety is maybe not necessary, but maybe it is necessary so that we're being very clear that it's for the consumer.
So Dr. Singleton put a shorter version.
Oh, fantastic. Where's that?
It's under in the chat. Update the naturopathic formulary as stated in the law to reflect advances in medicine and training, period.
That seems to flow a bit.
And in the subtitle, we do have consumer protection. So that's sort of a given for each of the bullet points. So maybe we don't have to restate it.
I like that because I think these goals need to be fairly concise. I mean, if they want more explanation, isn't there an area in the document that gives them more background and explanation?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I think I said that I think that these goals should be concise and not have too much description in them. I like the second version, the shorter version better.
Right, okay, so I can just replace, so this is gonna be 4.8, is that what I'm getting?
Or are we trying to put this a little higher up at like 4.1 or 4.2?
I think we need to put this higher up. This was the point of, I think, what Dr. Singleton wanted to do. Is that correct, Dr. Singleton?
Yeah, so then we would take whatever we decide for 4.7 and 4.8 and move that up to 4.1 and 4.2.
I do want to say that I really think the current 4.1 is really important. So I'm just putting that out there. And also somewhat of a continuation of what's been going on with the ongoing IV regulations.
I think if you asked a licensee, they would disagree.
But again, our goal isn't to make the licensees happy. Our goal is to protect the
Understand.
consumers, and not being able to update continuing education is a big issue.
Understand.
However, not
To
not
me,
being
all of
able to.
them are equally as important. I think that the formulary probably is the most riskiest to consumers.
I
Okay.
agree.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
I think we can still keep 4.1 as 4.2 and still make it a priority.
Okay.
So which,
Yeah, I
I'm
think I
sorry,
maybe,
there's a lot of, can we just confirm what numbering, the numeration this is going to be in? So right now I have the update, the formulary as 4.1, but you're saying that you want seek and support legislation as number 1?
no, let's definitely do the formulary as 1. I feel like the seek and support legislation could stay where it is, honestly. I don't think it needs to be moved. I feel like, but I'm attached to that. But I think we were saying,
4.7.
well, I'm open to discussion on that, but I think that we're saying 1 is going to be update the naturopathic formulary as stated in the law to reflect advances in medicine and training.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a little back
Okay.
and forth. And I feel like the continuing education should remain at 4.2. And I will admit that I'm biased given how much a huge pain this has been for me regarding the continuing education.
Right.
I've been really, really involved in this particular issue. So
I think
feel strongly about it.
thinking about how people read bullet points, their attention span is about 4 at the most, and everything else they probably will blur. So we should put the most, if we're gonna put an order of importance, I think that continuing education, I'm flexible whether it's 4.2 or 4.3. But I think the formulary, definitely 4.1. Dr. Thompson, if you're stuck on the continuing education being 4.2, totally fine. And 4.3, seeking legislation. And then after that, I'm impartial.
I'm comfortable with that. What do you think, Dr. Yoon? You're the other one that was really weighing in on this.
I'm comfortable with that as well.
Okay, let's just go with it then.
Perfect. All right.
Okay, moving on to 5.
All right, so goal 5, board administration, we've got 6 objectives here. And basically, objective 3, so it says in the comments that objective 3 on slide 58 was skipped and removed.
Moderator, can you
The
change
objective
the
of,
slide, please?
Yes, would
she
you?
says that she believes, oh, sorry, go ahead.
We're on goal 5. Yeah,
We're on
thank you
goal
so
5.
much.
Did you want to see the PowerPoint to reflect on the comments that were made?
Basically, she's saying that objective 3 on slide 58 was duplicative. So it was a repeat. The objective appeared to repeat the objectives under licensing enforcement and laws and regulations 1.5, 3.5, and 4.7 respectively, and felt that it would be repetitive to include the catch here, the catch-all subject here.
Is this the correct slide? Can you tell? My apologies. I'm having a hard time finding the.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
So you won't even see it on this list. She did not put it in here.
I'm sorry, what was it? Increased transparency and accountability is the one we're looking at?
Yeah, increased transparency and accountability.
I mean, I do agree that that was covered previously.
Great. Okay. Just make note of this. And then the next is that the objective 5.4 on this list comes from the stakeholder outreach goal area. It is objective number 6 on slide 66, and she feels that it best fits here.
Okay, there is a comment above regarding the order of the bullet points.
Right, I have already taken care of those.
Oh, you reordered them already.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So basically, this was monitor and evaluate DEI impact. It was number 6 under the stakeholder outreach, and it was moved here at 5.4.
As the representative of the board administration, do you have any problem with that?
No.
And then it looks like there's one more down here that was moved from laws and regulations.
That is correct. 5.6 was moved from the laws and regulations section.
I have a question about the punctuation in this. It says efficiently utilize funds to increase outreach promoting licensure. Shouldn't that be to increase outreach, comma, promoting licensure? Like, isn't that how it should read?
Yes.
Okay.
I will add that comment now. Everybody's okay with this?
Yes.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
I believe Andy is offline really quick, so we're going to have to wait until he gets back in.
Since we do only have a half an hour left, is there anything, I know that we can finish the strategic plan review in the January meeting if needed. Is there anything we absolutely have to get done today that's a later agenda item?
Well, 11, but it's going to, it's an action item, so he needs to be here for that also.
Right. No, I know that. I was just, while he was offline, I was just trying to make, so we do have to leave some time for 11.
Right. Yeah, we need some time for 11 because PD is trying to move forward on this just so that they can release their resources. Other than that, I would really, and we may be able to put the creation of the legislative committee to the next one as well, but we will need to pick the future meeting dates. because there were a couple that were up in the air, and we've got members that have picked a whole bunch of different dates, and so we don't have any one date that has enough members that has a quorum. So there's two, the Q1 and Q3 meeting that we're going to have to really tie down today.
And definitely Q1 if we don't finish the strategic plan today, which looks like we're not going to.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so let's prioritize. Then I'd say let's finish goal 5 once Dr. Yan, or not Dr. Yan, Mr. Yan gets back on. And then do agenda item 11.
Mr. Yam is back.
Fantastic. And future meeting dates, and then see what time we have left to go back to the strategic plan. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's a great plan.
All right. I think that we did get through goal 5, unless people have other questions or comments. We just added that last comma in 5.6.
Right.
Great. So we're
so-
actually going to pause our strategic plan review and move on to agenda item 11 so that we can get the colors, decided on definitively for our logo.
Okay, so I just wanted to jump in here for number 11 really quick. So I just wanted to remind everybody of the resources that it will require if you guys do choose to move forward with picking a new color on the staff, our IT team, and this would mean that if you guys wanted to change the color, we have to go back, and every single form that we have to change. We have to get put up online, and we have to also go and change our internet web design. So this is just a refresher, just reminding everybody that if we do make that change of a color, it still requires us to do as much work as we did when we changed the logo itself. And with that, these are the new colors.
And Rebecca, will
As
that
a reminder,
increase the budget in any way?
I mean, it's just staff time, so it would be taking away from them doing licensing or enforcement just to put new colors.
Okay.
I don't have issue with the current logo color. I think that it's nice. I don't feel partial to the other 3.
And if I may ask as well, this is Andy. What was the original intent to change the color? I think it might have preceded me.
I believe that somebody said that they did not like the kind of brownish look with the color of the ginkgo leaf because it looked too muddy, if I remember right, was the exact terminology used. And they wanted something a little bit fresher, crisper, and so the 3 on the left were what was asked for in, I believe, the 9 or 10 color combinations that were brought to the board, and this was several meetings ago. We had kept it because we did not have time to go and do color at the time that the logo was changed from the committee to the board. So we did do the new shield and the new ginkgo leaf kind of combo logo, changed the board name, but we kept the current color of that committee logo, which I believe just kind of kept the brand going so that people knew just by looking, oh yeah, that was the committee and now they're the board. And so it really did just keep the brand there, but there were requests from the board that it be changed, so that's why we brought this to you guys. So it's definitely up to you, but I did want you to know that there will be quite a bit of resource staff-wise and for the IT OIS team.
Is there an option to table this until 2026 after sunset and a whole bunch of other stuff, budget?
Absolutely. You guys can bring this back to the table whenever you feel it's appropriate.
Would support that because I'm actually one of the people that likes the new colors better, but I don't feel strongly enough about it to, it's certainly not the priority right now.
I would
Would you
concur.
guys like to just put it back on the table for after sunset?
Let's do that.
Correct.
Okay, do we have to ask for
Is there
public
any
comment on
public?
this?
Yes, please.
This is,
Sacramento.
thank you. This is the moderator. If there is anyone on WebEx who would like to make a comment on the logo deferment, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. You may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. Are there any comments on deferring the logo to a future meeting after sunset? I do not see any requests for comment. Are there any other locations that have any public comment requested? Hearing none, shall I close that comment feature?
Yes, please do.
Thank you.
Okay, so then I think we were going to move on to future meeting dates with a priority being the January meeting date, because we will need to have that in place to finish out the strategic plan. What do we have so far for dates that worked for people, Rebecca? Oh, here we go.
So Q1 2025 meetings, we have the two that are currently the top choices for the board members was Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025, or Friday, January 31st, 2025. Now remember that the strategic plan is a 2025 through 2030, so the sooner we can get it adopted, the sooner it goes into effect. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, and that's why we need the Q1 meeting to be in January and not further along.
Correct. And those are your two choices, so, of dates. And just for a reminder, these dates were already sent out to you guys in a doodle poll. These are just the two that have more than one were where there was no one date that enough members had selected that gave us a quorum. So it's, I just really want to stress that when you do look at this, if you see that there's only going to be 3 members and everybody has already have made their decisions, that we really have to make those decisions to make a quorum.
So does anyone have conflicts with the 2 January dates? Anyone that's actually here, knowing that Dr. Mukherjee and Dr. Davis are not, I'm sorry, Dr. Davidson are not here?
I have conflict with, this is Dr. Singleton. I have conflict with both of those dates. However, I understand that I'm a minority.
Are those
They're clinic days
conflicts
for me.
things that you have any way to get around? I guess. Like, are you
I mean,
out of the country?
they're clinic days, so of course, there's flexibility, right?
So, just so you guys know, Dr. Bruce Davidson was available for both of those days, and Dr. Mukherjee is available only for the January 22nd date.
So let's look at January 22nd.
All right, I want to just add that those two dates are both difficult for me, but the Wednesday is the one that I really don't think I would be able to make it to.
Okay.
I could make the Friday work.
This is Andy. I think I have a preference for the Friday date.
Those are both also clinic days for me, but I can make either of them work. I have a strong preference for Thursdays.
I also really prefer Thursdays as well.
I prefer Thursdays as well. I'm not quite sure how this ended up where the Wednesday and the Friday are our options, but is there anything that we could do on the poll again, Rebecca, to see whether or not we can find another date that works for all of us?
Thursday the 23rd.
I can. Okay, let me look at my calendar. There may have been a reason that I didn't put Thursdays on there, and it may be that my schedule's already booked. Hold on a second.
Dr. Singleton, do you also work on Thursdays?
Yes, I have a little bit more flexibility on Thursdays, though.
Okay.
Would you guys like to do Thursday the 23rd? Are you available? January 23rd. All right, that works. Thursday, January 23rd works for us. If you guys are able to make that work, I will make that the meeting date.
That sounds great to me.
Okay. Yes.
Great.
Yes.
The only caveat to that is if Dr. Mukherjee and Dr. Davidson cannot make that, we may not have a quorum. So I will let you guys know if they can make that, then we'll have that scheduled.
Great.
Let's potentially make Thursday the 23rd, and then the backup day is Friday the 31st. Can we agree on that?
I think the only person who said they couldn't make the 31st work was Dr. Mukherjee. Is that correct, Rebecca? Okay,
Correct.
so let's try for the Thursday. Okay. And nobody gets
All right,
sick in
and what about
January.
Yeah, okay, Q2 looks like it was set in stone. Everybody agreed on Wednesday, May 14th. Q3, there were two dates that were up in the air on that one as well. It was Thursday, August 14th and Monday, August 18th.
I think we've
Bringing that
determined
up
that people
right
like
now.
Thursdays better.
Thursday the 14th is better for me. This is Dr. Singleton.
I agree with Thursday.
That would
Was
be
there
Thursday
anyone
the 15th.
Was there anyone for whom the Thursday the 14th time did not work?
So Dr. Mukherjee is not available on that date as well. However, it looks like everybody else, oh no, it looks like Andy was unable to make that date unless his schedule has changed.
Sorry, which day was that again?
Thursday, August
Thursday.
14th.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm taking a look at my calendar. August 14th?
Yes.
I can certainly try, I think. I think I might have just blanket response no on that week, just because that is the week of my birthday. And sometimes I travel. So
Gotcha. All right. So, let's see here. All right, so do you guys want to try for August 14th, Thursday, August 14th?
That seems like the best choice right now. And we can check with Dr. Mukherjee. Sometimes when I'm filling out the doodles, I'll mark off a day that just is inconvenient for me, but I could still make it work if given enough notice.
Okay. All right, I will send that out to make sure that everybody's okay with those dates, and then I will reserve the room here in advance so that we have a meeting site here in Sacramento. We'll probably do what we've been doing with this virtual meeting today, just for cost savings.
Okay, great. So looking back at our agenda, we've done.
Public comment?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Dr. Thompson?
Yes. Can we please call for public comment?
Certainly. If anyone would like to make a comment on the future meeting dates, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. And that is for WebEx users. And are there any in-person users at any of our locations?
I'm in Sacramento.
Thank you. All right, I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment features?
Yes, please do.
Thank you.
So looking at our agenda, with the exception of the strategic plan, there's one other agenda item that we do need to cover today, which is discussion and possible action to create a legislative subcommittee. Rebecca, this was something that was brought up at the last meeting, correct?
That is correct. Basically, there was discussion about possibilities of running legislation, and of course, in our strategic plan, there's a whole bunch of stuff with, running legislation. So I believe that it was brought up that it would be a good idea to have a legislative committee under the board that could kind of go and do the footwork and then bring those items back to the board, the full board. And Dara, I do believe, Dr. Thompson, that you would be able to appoint 2 members to sit on that committee.
Yes, so I think this is a great idea. The question really is, do we have the members for it? Are there people that are specifically interested in being on the legislative subcommittee?
Dr. Thompson, I'm happy to serve on that if you are looking for folks.
Yeah, I think you would be great on that. But we do need probably at least one other person.
I also am willing to be on that committee. This is Dr. Jim.
Is anyone else interested in being on that subcommittee? Just a reminder that 2-person subcommittees are great because their meetings don't need to be posted. So that allows them to communicate freely and then bring their information back to the board. So that is a really nice size for a subcommittee. Any other questions or comments about this? So Rebecca, do we need to ask for a public comment before I would potentially appoint these 2 board members to the subcommittee?
Yes, yes, please.
Great. Why don't we ask for public comment then?
Of course, this is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the legislative subcommittee, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send. And I assume there are no members of the public in any of the other locations. And I do not see any request for comment from the WebEx. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Please do.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So at this point, I would like to appoint Dr. Mina Yoon and public member Andy Yam to our legislative subcommittee. So what we've done with the subcommittees in the past is the members will work with Rebecca to find times to meet, and then when they have substantive information to bring back to the board, they would just speak to Rebecca about that, and we'll get an agenda item and get a report from them on that. If that works for everyone, we will just go forward in that way, and maybe we'll get a report at our next meeting on January 23rd. Determined. Does that work for everybody? Great. So we just have a few minutes left in our meeting here. And what I would like to do is just go back and look at the strategic plan to see how much we have left to go through that plan.
So I've taken the liberty to do that already. So basically we're in goal 6, which is the stakeholder outreach, which is the very last section of your strategic plan. And there's 2 comments on here. Both of them is that they skipped or removed an objective because it was repetitive. So the 2 items that were taken out, one of them was objective 7 on slide 67. Basically, it was repetitive of objectives 1.1 and 6.1. And then objective 9 on slide 67, which was appeared to be a repeat of the intentions of objective 8 on slide 67, which is 6.6.
Can we, yeah. So you're saying that if we approve everything in goal 6, now we are actually done with the strategic plan?
You're done with the strategic plan. You would just have to move to adopt it with the amendments that were made today.
I think we should try to do that. Okay, so let's take a look at the stakeholder outreach section here. We have 5 bullet points. The comments again were about things that were skipped or combined. Any questions or comments about the bullet points that we have in place? So I'm sorry, I was just reading through those again.
My only comment would be going back to Dr. Singleton's priority list to maybe move 6.3 first. But otherwise, I'm okay with everything.
Everybody okay with moving 6.3 to 6.1?
Sorry, can we get back to goal 6 on the screen? Thank you. Should that be professional standards?
Yes.
Or should it be profession standards? They're kind of different.
Professional standards.
I'm fine with moving that to number 1.
Okay. Any other changes?
I'd actually like to move 6.4 higher as well.
Do you think we should cluster all the DEI focused ones, like put 6.3 and 6.4 as the first ones, and then the last 3 flow together because they have a focus on DEI inclusion?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Just a little more cohesive in the way it reads. So like 6.3 would be the first, 6.4 would be the second, and then it would go 6.1, 6.2, 6.5 for the last 3. And I think that looks fine. Because it's like because like the first ones are more like generally what we're doing about actually just getting stakeholders informed and involved, and then more specifics after that, which I like. All right.
Are the 2 DEI bullet points, are they the same?
There are actually 3 DEI bullet points. There's develop DEI focused outreach to promote culturally competent communication. And then there's foster DEI focused collaborative partnerships to promote shared goals. Just being a slightly different, like one's more like we're just reaching out to diverse populations in general. And the other one is collaborative partnerships. I assume that means like with other organizations. And then establish reporting requirements to increase transparency and accountability regarding progress and outcomes of DEI initiatives. I actually think that should be the last one. Like it should be like 6.1, 6.5, and then 6.2 after that, because it says, okay, we're doing these things, and then we're going back and checking ourselves to make sure we actually did them.
Point 5 and then 6.2?
Yes. Thank you, Rebecca.
Okay.
That was amazing.
Of course.
That works for me.
Okay. Got it. So then do we hear a motion, to adopt the strategic plan draft with the accepted suggestions provided by Solid and the board member amendments?
I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the stakeholder, I'm sorry, I'm reading the strategic plan with the amendments made by Solid and board members.
Sorry,
Okay.
can I
Second?
ask a quick question before we vote?
Sure.
Just wanted super, I guess, quickly, for the list of board members at the top, I was just kind of scrolling through. Will it be changed to reflect what we currently just approved in terms of the board leadership? I just think it looks weird to have this
Yes.
empty space on vice president.
Yes, it is. It will be.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other
Did we
comments
get
before we get a second?
I can second it.
All right, any public comments?
And this is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the strategic plan, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon. Click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. Are there any comments on the strategic plan? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right, and I will take a roll call. Dr. Dara Thompson.
Aye.
Dr. Mina Yoon.
Aye.
Dr. Vera Singleton.
Aye.
Dr. Satara Tice.
Aye.
And Mr. Andy Yam.
Aye.
And that motion moves with 5. And I will go ahead and grab those amendments, and the final draft will be sent out to you guys.
Wow, that's amazing. It's 3:01. Are there any last comments or questions before we adjourn the meeting? Okay, wonderful. So this is Dr. Dara Thompson, and I am adjourning our October 4th, 2024 meeting at 3:01 p.m. Thank you everyone for making an effort to be here. I look forward to seeing all of you on January 23rd, hopefully.
Thank you all so much.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much.